Hello and welcome to Merrick Studios' live session, Software Modernization, Time to Market. I'm Aleksandra, Senior Content Marketing Specialist at Merrick Studio, and I will be your host today. Joining me are two very special and very knowledgeable guests, Andrzej Puszka, our software architect, and Maciej, our project manager. Hi guys, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine.
Doing good.
Okay, I'm really excited to have you here today. So as the title of the session suggests, today we'll be talking about optimizing the process of releasing new features. In more detail, we are going to cover things like the importance of optimizing time to market for mature organizations, symptoms indicating that you are going either too fast or too slow with releases, as well as the ways in which you can improve time to market for healthy business growth. And before I ask my guests to introduce themselves, let me do a short housekeeping. So today's session is going to last about an hour, and it will be divided into two parts. First, we will have the expert discussion, and then the Q&A session. If you come up with any questions whatsoever, please leave them in the chat box, and we will address them after the discussion. It's a live stream, but it's being recorded, so you will be able to rewatch it later on. Okay, I think it's time for our guests to tell us a few words about who they are and what they do, as well as about their experience with software modernization. Andrew, could you begin and tell us a few words about yourself?
Hi, my name is Andrew. I'm a software architect at Merrick Studio. I started working with Merrick Studio around 2 years ago, firstly as a DevOps. Then last year I switched to software architect role. Before that, I worked in a subscription and a pay-per-view business as a backend and tech lead. And overall, I'm a fan of cloud solutions, and I kind of try to push people past their code.
Okay, thank you very much. Maciej, how about you?
Hey, I'm project manager and scrum master at Maciej Studio. I have 9 years of experience in software development, including such industries like medical and pharmacy, video gaming, gambling, and sports betting.
Okay, thank you very much for the intros. I'm really excited to have you both here and to have two quite different, but I believe complementary perspectives that you will bring today. Okay, shall we begin? Are you ready?
Of course.
I hope so.
Okay, so let's roll. I'd like us to start with something that I believe all of us want to achieve, with success. So in software, success depends on many factors. On the level of innovation that the digital product brings to the market, on the product market fit, on cost of development, and I believe I could go on forever, literally. So my question for the beginning of this session to you is, what is the role of time to market in software success? How would you describe it?
Time to market is the length in time where we are able to deliver some increments, some new features, new product to our end users. And it's very important because in software development, our goals are to bring some new value to our users.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not only just value for users, but it also means that if we bring this value to users, we directly connect this to a bigger revenue for the company. So having as short time to market as possible is crucial for companies.
Yeah, and definitely, Andrzej, you are a bit more direct regarding the reasons. I tried to be a bit more ideal, dreaming person, let's call it this way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'm wondering, would you say that time to market is more important in some industry than others? So suppose you want to start your business or you're already operating in a certain industry, on a certain market. When should you make time to market your top priority?
I believe that time to market is very, very important for the new markets, new industries. Also, if we are operating regarding the seasons, some events where we have quite strict deadline to introduce new products or a new feature.
Andrew, do you have anything to add regarding the industries in which time to market is especially important?
Yeah, exactly. On especially on seasonal or brands, kind of when we are talking about tourism, for example, or sports events that only happen, for example, during the summer, or when we have tourism for winter, for skiing or something like that, then we cannot really move the deadline. We cannot control the weather or month that we are in. So it's crucial to produce value for our customers before that happens, or to be kind of on the market when the time comes.
Okay, so the industries in which you just cannot exceed the deadline no matter what happens. Okay, I see. And
yeah, it's hard to imagine a situation that we are preparing new application for upcoming football season, for example, and we are calling to the league management, hey guys, could you postpone your league start for a week because we are almost ready.
Yeah, like Super Bowl, sorry, let's postpone it until the next month.
Yeah, our ad is almost perfect.
Okay, I see. And how about the phases of product development? Because so far I have the feeling that we've been mixing it, and I'm wondering, is time to market perhaps more important for younger businesses, maybe for scale-ups, or maybe for mature organizations and enterprises? Is there any simple way to address this question? What do you think?
I think it really depends. For startups, it's obviously very important because it determines if the company will even have success, right? If you miss your time to market, or if you deliver something that is already not unique because somebody else beat you up to it, then it might be as simple as just closing the business. On the other hand, you have big companies, big enterprises that they have obviously more resources, but it also can result, if you miss your time, it's gonna result in big loss revenue, for example, or shutting down department and people losing their job. So both situations are pretty important when it comes to time to market. It really depends.
Yeah, I would like to focus on enterprises. So even if we are a leader, the main competitor on the market, and since some moment we are always second, third with new features, then we definitely won't be at the top after a while, because it's very important to give some innovation to the market, to the audience.
So keep this competitive advantage, even if you are a mature organization, or especially if you are a mature organization. Okay.
We need to try to stabilize, to keep this position of the leader of the market, and being fast with new products, new features is one of those ways.
Okay. I'm glad that you actually mentioned enterprises, because that's what I like to focus on from now on, because after all, the main topic is software modernization. And Andrew, you actually said it depends, and that's one of my favorite phrases in IT. And now I'd like to ask you a question to which I suppose the answer will be it depends. But my question is there any optimal value of time to market that you should strive for as a mature organization? Is there any value like that? Or maybe you should rely on a gut feeling to say what the optimal time to market is?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it depends, right? But to give maybe an example, there might be a situation when the feature that your team is developing is considered unique on the market, and then having this delivered still as a unique functionality is crucial because it keeps your customers interested in your company, for example, or it can expand your customer amount or number. If you miss this mark, if there is a competitor of yours that will deliver this functionality sooner, then you're kind of out of luck, and then you need to figure out something else and waste resources on something else as well. Well, not
Yes,
necessarily as well, but kind of commit to new features.
yes, but from another hand, we cannot go too fast to the market, because if our product it's not polished enough, if it's not ready, we have still some gaps in functionalities and so on, we will also lose. Well, it's not so important that we were first, but we made a bad first impression. That's also not a good approach.
And it's specifically true for enterprises, because for startups, you don't have yet this point of view of people seeing you as a quality enterprise, for example. If you're a big company, there are already some expectations towards you. So it cannot be that you are developing just some kind of proof of concept on a real stable market.
Yes, totally agree.
Okay, so striving for balance would be that's the answer to this question. Okay, but unfortunately, that's not always the case, right? Because we wouldn't be here today if everybody were able to find, this golden mean, the optimal time to market. So, speaking from your own experience, what's the problem that enterprise clients face more often? Going too fast or too slow with releases?
I would say definitely it will be too slow. Usually we have to deal with many stakeholders, many involved people, departments, many voices, many expectations. So I would say even conception process takes a lot longer than in some smaller companies like startups and so on. We have to get approval from many people, and it takes time.
So I'm wondering, are you able to actually point out to some symptoms that show that you are going too slow and that your time to market is too slow when you're a mature organization? You already said that there are too many stakeholders. What other symptoms would you name to help, our audience realize that actually something is wrong with their time to market? Andrzej, do you have any hints?
I mean, one of an example is in enterprises, it's usually very common to have kind of bad feedback loop or even inexistent feedback loop to direct customers. And that means when we combine this with multiple stakeholders, the idea phase of the project may take a lot of time, and we're not even sure if this is kind of the feature that will be used by our customers and they will be satisfied by it. And all of that brings the longer it goes, the more questions people have, even inside the team. So also kind of one of the symptoms is that people can get kind of fed up inside the team and look for maybe other alternatives, because the project is going, for example, for a year or two without any feedback if this is even going in the right direction.
So they cannot really see any progress, and I suppose that can be really discouraging to people on the project team.
Yeah, that's correct. Most of people in IT wants to see their outcomes of their work, and if we are working, as Andrzej mentioned, on some feature for a whole year, and we cannot see it working on a production, cannot get some feedback from users, it might be very frustrating.
So there is no tangible progress, nothing to be proud of, actually.
That's correct.
Okay, so we have the symptoms. How about the reasons? Because something must trigger this kind of situation. I suppose that you could group these according to what part of the organization they are tied to. So maybe let's start with the processes and organizational aspects. Maciej, I'm sure that you will have plenty to say about this issue.
When we think about enterprises, we often think about the structure that works in waterfall. So first, we need to design our feature, our product. Then we have to focus on development. Then is testing phase, and after we accomplish all our checkpoints on the list, then we can release it. It often takes much time. Also, sometimes it's even before the design, a lot of R&D work and so on. So even when I'm speaking, we can imagine how long it may take.
Okay. And how about the vision that lies within this enterprise company? Can it also be the reason for the prolonged time to market, maybe lack of coherent vision?
Yeah, for sure, and it affects not only just the length of the project, but the team as well. The thing that we talked just before about team members being kind of frustrated if on the top level or kind of on the higher level of organization there is no unified vision of the feature or the project, then also on the lower level there are questions and doubts of how it's going to work, and all of it just delays the time to market and delivery of the product.
And speaking of the team, I'm wondering how about the development practices? Do they also influence time to market, and can they also be the reason for the delays?
Yes, of course. There is this big thing called legacy code, right? When we talk about enterprises, we cannot miss legacy code. There's always a company that has some kind of software already in place. And when we or the companies, when they develop new features, it often comes with some technological debt that they need to overcome in order to release new features. You can talk about some hidden dependencies or some areas that were neglected when it comes to tests or just pure functionalities that were just overlooked.
Okay.
Yeah, when we have a huge batch of legacy code, then we can often experience some delays, dependencies, because every even tiny feature needs to be checked with old code. Sometimes we discover some unexpected bugs, and no one knows how to deal with them because people who are responsible for this old code are no longer in the company. So and often this code is outdated, maybe bad quality. So it's very problematic situation for the company to deal with the legacy code.
So it's kind of like very unpleasant process of excavation.
Yes.
Okay. And I know that when we are talking about software modernization, there are always NDAs and you cannot really mention particular projects for obvious reasons. But I'm wondering if you can share any of your own experience regarding work with legacy code and how it affects time to market.
Yeah, I have an example from my previous company. One of my previous companies, we had to deal with a lot of front-end legacy code. So every new element on the product for the product took a lot of time. So finally, the company, the C-level structure decided we have to deal with legacy code. We spent a couple of long sprints to rid of the old code, replace it with a new shiny one, and this was the reason why we could reduce time spent on core tests. So there was very good pros we experienced after we dealt with legacy code.
So it's actually the proof that that it works, right?
Definitely.
Okay. And you mentioned testing. Are there any maybe testing practices that also impact time to market in a negative way and make it unbearably lengthy?
Yeah, of course. When you talk about enterprises, there are still companies in the world that follow so-called release trains, where you have multiple teams that they gather each half a year, for example, and they release their features, and it comes with a lot of stress, a lot of risks, a lot of regression tests, and overall the whole company is kind of put on hold for a couple of weeks almost, in order to release features that could probably be released on a daily basis if it was done in a different way. Hence, people just lean towards agile.
Yeah. When we imagine a situation that we release new features twice a year, so we have code that was written 6 months ago. Now we notice that some dependencies, some problems with the whole release package, and we have to go back to this 6 months old code. It's also a very uncomfortable situation because no one's really remember what and how was written 6 months ago.
And you cannot really foresee all the dependencies and kind of connections between those systems before they actually work together. And if you develop it in small batches, it's easier to figure this out than doing that every half a year and having to deal with some cases that you wouldn't even think about at the time of development.
Yeah, it's easier to review a few hundreds of line of code than thousands lines of code. Sorry, to find what doesn't work.
Yeah, and I suppose it must be very stressful for the developers, right? The pressure is here, especially because you are dealing with a mature product and a mature organization. And you have the reputation to sustain, right? And when there is, this big release coming, the pressure really gets real.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I believe that we have quite an accurate diagnosis. And now to follow this analogy, I would like us to try to administer some kind of treatment to our modernization patient and talk about how we can actually improve time to market to make it faster and to match it with our desired outcomes. So 2 months ago, we had this another software modernization session. It was devoted to legacy design, and we talked there a lot about user centricity. And I'm sure that all those who watched us will agree that being user centric is quite important for the success of modernization efforts. And I'm wondering, what role would you say user centricity plays in improving time to market? Can being customer centric or even customer obsessed actually improve time to market and shorten it? From your own experience, what do you guys think?
Yes, it may help us, but it can be also a trap. Being user-centric is good because the product is prepared, is developed for users. We do not develop it for the board, for someone from administration. Of course, besides the situation that they are end users, but we do the whole work for people who are actively using our product. But the trap might be if we are following all the every comment, every suggestion, and we can lose our vision and the whole strategy of the product, of company goals, and so on.
Yeah, and feedback loop is important, right? And kind of we can as a company we can identify some beta users, for example, or like some testing group that can help us realize if the feature is going in the right direction and if it satisfies the selected group. But as Maciej said, is it can also be a trap because we need to remember that everybody is different and not everyone might have first the vision that the company follows, and also there might be people that think about some functionality that might be useful for them, but it's, I don't know, maybe like a 1% or 0.5% of a target audience. And then you need to really kind of weigh pros and cons if you should even go with this feature or not.
Okay. So how not to fall into this trap of, focusing too much on everybody's wishes? How should you select the users to test, or maybe what procedures should you follow so as to, keep this balance in place?
So the first thing I would say is to find some the most loyal or maybe most active group of users who are very well familiar with our application, who might admit situation that we are release directly for them some beta version and they can test it before everyone else, that they might be also our ambassadors then after being beta tested. So this is the way how to find this group, and how to not to fall into the trap. We need to always wait. How many similar comments, similar requests we get, how it will fit into our strategy, if our in our roadmap and far goals.
Okay, so thinking all about this pros and cons and trying to find the golden mean. Okay, I see. And end users are very important, sometimes even the most important, as you said. But there is also one more group of stakeholders that you cannot really neglect, and these are internal stakeholders. So managers, C-levels, the board members. These are the people who should support our actions, because without them, our modernization efforts simply will not succeed. So from your own experience and to your best knowledge, how should you structure this relationship between the product team and the internal stakeholders? What can you do as the enterprise client to help actually structure this relationship that it fosters shorter time to market?
One of the things is that we are talking about the vision, right? How important it is that the vision is unified across the stakeholders. And here's where the kind of role of a good PO is such a crucial part of the project development, because this good PO or the good product owner can first talk to all the stakeholders, can unify the vision across them, and then can forward this vision or kind of present this vision to the team as well, and kind of instead of going back and forth between those two sides, he can decide on his own, or he and she.
Yes, product owner has to have this decision power. It cannot happen situation when product owners decide to allocate some resources into one direction, and after a while someone from C-level, for example, comes and say, oh no, we definitely have to change it. This is wasting time, wasting our opportunities. So definitely we need to have someone who is trustable across the company, who knows the product well, who is able to cooperate between all the parties. One is dev team, another are stakeholders, maybe some other departments who have to deliver some outcomes for the team. So this is very, very important and responsible position.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And from your own experience, how open, the enterprise client outsourcing software modernization to actually try to incorporate the suggestions of the tech partner, considering, these organizational aspects, the role of product owner, and so on?
I would say it depends. It depends of the need that lies on the ground of the cooperation. If the company the enterprise company feels need to change something, to restructure the way they work, it's a good moment to propose some changes, some structure revision, and so on. If we are asked only to deliver part of code, part of features, and that's all, then I don't see much opportunity to support this company in big change. We can only support this particular product owner in some prioritization and so on, showing some good practices, but the field is very, very narrow.
Yeah, from my side, I would say it's changing for the better over following years. Big companies more often see and realize that it's good to have an open-minded set, and they see the value of going away from kind of waterfall and all those big processes in favor of a shorter time to market. Seeing all those good examples of like Spotify or Netflix or other big companies that they work in this way and it works out, and they have a success in this. So more and more companies also come to software houses like us with an open-minded and with a lot of space for us kind of to first learn from us also, and then to kind of cooperate on this level.
Okay. Yeah, I know that it's quite a complex topic, right? Because we, as a tech partner, cannot always influence the decisions of the client. But I believe that you gave some very fair pieces of advice to our audience, so that should work out to their advantage. And before we proceed to the next question I have prepared for you guys, I'd like to remind you that we are still waiting for your questions. So if you have anything you'd like to ask Maciej or Andrew, please leave them in the chat box. Okay. So you mentioned, guys, actually processes and workflows a couple of times already, and I believe that this thing should be addressed too. So my question is there any particular methodology or maybe approach that is particularly fit for making time to market a bit shorter and more optimal?
Definitely any agile methodology. The most popular is Scrum, can help us. So the whole Scrum idea based on 3 pillars, and those which are strictly connected with time to market are inspection and adaptation. So we all, in every period, in every loop, we want to check and gather all the outcomes, choose the right ones, and adapt them. And in the next cycle, avoid maybe some mistakes or use those outcomes to make something better, faster.
Yeah,
So
I think you're touching a good point. Like Scrum allows teams to develop features and to release features to production much faster than regular, let's say, waterfall processes, and this directly connects to having a shorter feedback loop, which allows those teams and product teams as well to realize if the feature is going in the right direction sooner with Scrum.
Okay, so would you say that waterfall is definitely a no-go? Or is it acceptable sometimes?
I'm a big fan of Scrum, and I believe Scrum mostly works everywhere. But I would say that waterfall might be a good solution in some circumstances. If our clients are focused, for example, on some very strict budget, but not to having some market dependencies and so on. Maybe if we are working on some very tiny solutions, I believe waterfall might be okay in such a situation, but in my opinion, Scrum works almost everywhere. Not only IT, not only product delivery. It can be applied to many departments, many companies, and many areas. Even, for example, in Netherlands, sometimes it's used in some schools and education industry.
That's actually pretty interesting, and I believe that it's due to these, these pillars and values, the transparency, openness, and so on, that it's so universal.
Yeah, I would say that Scrum values are very universal and could be applied in real life. So being focused on the right things, having respect to our coworkers. Who would disagree that these are the right factors?
Okay, so we've covered the project management methodology to go for, and now I'd like us to focus on tech solutions, because I believe that they play a major role in how time to market turns out in a mature organization. So Andrew, I believe that that's something, that's the question that you will perfectly answer. What solutions, what technologies should you employ to actually make time to market a bit shorter?
Yeah, if we are talking about like the legacy code, for example, as well, in order to kind of get out of it, it's important to have the right code quality. And the code quality comes with not only a clean code, but also good processes when it comes to code reviews, for example, or developing components in a reusable way, so that you don't need to duplicate this code just slightly differently for a different use, for example, which delays time to market, of course, right? When we talk about development, we cannot omit any kind of automation. The more automation, the more automated stuff you have, the easier and the faster you will get to with your features to the market, right? So what we can focus on, we can focus on the continuous development and continuous integration, and we can automate testing it. We can automate micro environments for different features, and we can for example, set up quality gates that automatically check not only the code, but also some standards that are in the company when it comes to security, for example.
If we are talking about automation, it's very important to mention that having some processes, some repeatable actions automated allows our team to focus on delivering new code, not on doing the same things in every cycle. So it might be very cost effective.
So kind of working smart and not really hard, so that doing the stuff that you don't have to do really to keep up the quality.
Especially this is important for all kinds of tests, because once you automate them, then you can run them pretty much every time. Let's say every code change can be tested for multiple, like thousands use cases, for example, which wouldn't be possible on a normal daily basis by doing manual work.
Okay. And how about infrastructure? Can you also improve it in such a way so as to release new features faster?
Yes. Still, kind of a couple of years ago, the most common scenario was that there were few environments mostly set up manually by some sysadmins or DevOps in companies, and it was difficult to either change something in them or to set up a new environment. Right now, more and more companies lean towards infrastructure as a code approach, where the configuration of infrastructure is also inside some repository, and you can reuse this code in order to set up environments basically on the fly. And that allows teams to have dedicated microenvironments for their tests, for figuring out integrations between teams, for example. And one of the common use cases is also usage of containers in those environments, which helps in kind of it separates the care for system operation system and for the underlying infrastructure, so that developers can focus on functionality. It also comes with a risk, because nowadays people think that containers can be set up once and then forgotten, and you still need to remember that they need to have updates, for example, for security reasons.
Okay, so there are always trade-offs, but I would say that it helps to such a point that actually taking care of it on a daily basis is not that much of a pain, really, because the advantages are significant. Okay. All right, guys. I think that you've equipped our audience with a lot of tools for optimizing time to market and for making it at least a bit faster. So now I'd like to address some questions that our audience had for us. Okay, so there is one from Wojciech Pigla, and Wojtek asks, how do you set the goals in mature organizations? Because we already said that sometimes it's impossible to say what the value of the optimal time to market should be, but I guess that you should have some goals, maybe KPIs that you set in a mature organization that you need to attain to say, okay, we are successful.
We can take, I believe, mostly two approaches. So independent releases, so every team can release by themselves. So this is one goal, to be very fast on the market. So every team can work independently. For example, our mobile department can from my perspective as a Scrum Master, there is no need to wait for example, web development with some mobile improvements. So definitely it's one way, and another just to make those releases, even if we release as a whole company, just to make them more often. at the end everyone will be satisfied.
Okay. Andre, do you have anything to add to that?
I can add a little bit, kind of put a highlight on the isolation of teams.
Sure.
So the thing that enterprises especially struggle with when it comes to developing features is dependency between teams and between different products. So setting a goal to improve that is already kind of a step forward, and it will pay off in the future because it will allow teams to move independently in their own pace, and this will mean that they will develop things faster because they don't need to wait or be dependent on just external people.
Okay, thank you for that. It's a very insightful thing to keep in mind. Okay, I can see that there are no more questions from the audience, but if you're watching a recording of this live session, you can always leave them in the comment, and we'll answer it then. But to finish off, I have one more question to you guys. Because we focused on making time to market faster. And that's definitely an issue when we are discussing mature organizations. But how about going too fast? Is it actually possible to happen in a mature organization, in an enterprise? Can it be the issue?
I think you can talk about going too fast if only in I guess in rare condition when you skipped kind of the feedback loop, because then and only after the product is kind of realized you can think that something was developed too fast because for example you focused on developing a feature that just completely missed your target audience, and although you developed it like a month before your competition, you actually will lose those clients and potentially indefinitely because you just lost their trust. So that's kind of one of the reasons that you might be going too fast, that you might be losing your clients basically.
I can imagine also a situation when we know that the newest release left, I don't know, 2 weeks, and somebody decides we need to fit a new feature before the release, and unfortunately it's too complex. We have not enough time to fully prepare it, and we agree and do everything to squeeze it in those, for example, 2 weeks. And then we realize after going on production that it wasn't well prepared. So in this case, also we may have situation even in such a not so often happening releases, we can go too fast because decision was made not in the right moment. Somebody took wrong factors into consideration.
Okay, thank you. So, in short, you should always be careful when you're a mature organization. So you can go too fast, go too slow. So there are certain things that you have to keep in mind if you want to still be one of the big players, the successful ones. Okay.
Yeah, I believe that we can also think of situation that big companies work in some kind of bubble. They are forgetting about their users, about asking them, about including their feedback in plans, in company plans. So it might be a problem that we are focusing too much on our internal ideas without listening to the people outside our organization.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. It's been already an hour. I mean, the time flies really fast when you have such an interesting discussion going. Thank you very much for your insights, for sharing your experience, and just for accepting our invitation to take part in this live session. I hope you had fun.
Thank you. It was a pleasure and fun.
Nice to hear that. Thank you very much. Okay, so as I said, you will be able to watch the recording of this session later on at your convenience. And if you come up with any questions regarding software modernization or time to market on the related topics, just feel free to leave them in the comments, or just to write us, to message us on social media. So see you during our next live session. Goodbye.
Bye.